All right, my next guest says don't fight the tape because, well, the dips are just brief and the upward swings are nice and long. Let's bring in Kobeissi, editor-in-chief Adam Kobeissi. And Adam, let's start with this, the stock market. So the S&P 500, you're bullish on it right now. I think last time we talked, you were bullish, but you had a relatively low target. Have you risen your target?
Yeah, so I feel like every time I'm on this show, I just keep raising my target all year, but it's kind of been our thesis, like just don't fight the trend. It's been incredibly strong market. We've had two corrections now of 10% or more in the S&P 500 in 2024 alone, both of which were bought within a matter of days, if not weeks. And this week we saw our 41st all-time high in the S&P 500 this year. So actually, right before the Fed meeting, we updated our analysis for our subscribers and raised our target to 5850 on the S&P 500. And I think into year end, I mean, we're going into Q4 now. You have earnings, you have the Fed meeting, you have the election, but in the background, you have a market that's incredibly excited about the prospect of another 50 bips cut. And I think that's just going to keep being the narrative, leading to all dips ultimately being bought here. So we're still bullish, regardless of all the noise.
You know, what's interesting is when they began this rate tightening cycle, when they started hiking rates, there was a debate, right? Because there's another old axiom out there, don't fight the Fed. Don't fight the tape versus don't fight the Fed. And it was a little bit tough initially, but now both of them are being accommodative. It's hard, to your point, to ignore them or to fight against them. It's always amazing to me how many people push back against that kind of momentum. The bond market's been a little trickier. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I was going to say, I mean, it's almost everyone's calling for a soft landing now. And I know in the previous segment, you were talking about what are the odds we go into a recession? What are the odds we have a hard landing? It's worth noting in every single recession since 1980, people have called for a soft landing, and it's only been obtained one time. That was in 1995, which was a vastly different economic backdrop. And actually, the Fed described it as one of their proudest accomplishments of all time. So, over the short term, we continue to be bullish. If you look further out, I think you definitely start to see more volatility. And I do think recession odds are rising into 2026.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because Janet Yellen gave an interview somewhere today, and she's talking about a soft landing, but she also predicted one in September 2007, 1 month before the official, one of the worst recessions ever. So, I just don't understand this early victory lap. Listen, I'm rooting for a soft landing, and I hope we get it, but it's hard to read. You read the tea leaves, to your point, and you go back to 94, the Fed only had to use 75 basis points of cuts. We've already used 50, and we probably, to your point, will use another 50 soon. So I got to get your thoughts on bonds because I know you're bullish on TLT now, but it's been a tricky trade lately.
Yeah, so it's been incredibly tricky. And I think right going into the Fed meeting, we took this view. I was actually on your show right before, a couple weeks before, that bonds were going to kind of take a sell the news event to the Fed decision, regardless of 25 or 50. That was the talk of the town. It was priced in. We got that sell the news event. You saw TLT drop back into 97.50. Actually, now it's starting to turn higher. I think, Treasury yields also bounced, now also starting to drift lower. I think you got that sell the news reaction, but the reality is markets are pricing in a greater chance of another 50 bips cut in November. There's also a 25% chance of 100 basis points of additional cuts in 2024 when the Fed is guiding 50, literally half as much. So in the market like this, it's very hard to be bearish of bonds. I think you really just have to keep buying the dip, and we think TLT is actually heading towards 105 next. So we're on the bond train.
All right, and you've been on the gold train for a while. You still think buying the dips is a smart move there. We've run out of time, my friend. Great work as usual, Adam. Talk to you again real soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right.